So in this property, we have dampness around the exit to the garden from the top floor flat. And there's rot around the timber. There's lots of dampness in the wall. And here we're showing strands that's a form of rot. Oh, it comes from rot, should I say? Timber rot. And there's quite a lot of pipe work in downstairs.
On this old wallpaper.
Here's the survey,
including this one, but it's completely dry. Difficult to know what would have caused it. Maybe for the neighbour. So let's look at. So this has been damp proofed, and you get the dampness starting on the just above the damp proofing treatment. Actually, this is the neighbour's shower is here. Here's the rotten frame. You want to just take it out from about here, or you could remove the whole lot, but there's obviously glass up there. But there's rot and a woodworm called wood weevil, and this is brown rot called cellar rot. Fortunately, there's no dry rot here. But the interesting thing is, if you come in here, you can see the strands, and the strands are originating from your neighbour's side. And I'll show you what is happening over there, but you can see the strands of the rot growing through the wall. Interesting one there. And it is damp here. That lines up with the neighbour's shower. So there are two sources of moisture here, plus the rot. So water from the neighbour's shower and condensation, probably made worse by having the washing machine tumble dryer here, and the cold, and obviously the kitchen upstairs, which is unventilated. The moisture is coming, it's basically forming condensation on the solid floor and wicking up, as they call it, but it's not rising down, it's condensation. It's getting up to, well, let's see. There you go.
This is using a standard damp meter, using radio frequency.
Fine, no big problems on the outside. Looks somewhat dilapidated. And the French drain, well, they're counterproductive. It'd be interesting to see what's...
The reason they're counterproductive is they don't drain. They can end up trapping the moisture under the shingle.
It's a semi-French drain. So we're seeing what the spread of the rot is, and that to me looks like there's some rot there. Yes, you can see in there. So that's on the neighbour's side of the wall. I heard that the wall was damaged when they were replacing the
I'm trying to assess the extent of rot,
let's try that.
Extent of dampness, and if there's dampness high up, there's a risk of rot to the ceiling, and then that could be more expensive, although it's an outbuilding, so it wouldn't be that expensive, not compared to inside.
So it's unlikely the roof is affected by it, but obviously you want to reduce the risk by removing the sources of moisture. Okay, that's all fine there. Good news. So there are early signs of decay here. Oh, that's wire wool, so presumably to stop mice getting through. Oh, well, maybe that looks worse than it actually is. It feels fine. It's just this could have some early signs, but it's not really.
Essentially, I'm concerned about structural timber that's holding maybe the stairs up or some timber framing.
That should be fine. You've got dampness there. That's internal. Okay. So I'm just going to go in the shower.
We're now next door. We're in the right-hand neighbour's side, or the downstairs side, actually.
So that's obviously a risk, and that's telling me that. So that's the standard level.
When you get a crack in the tiles or grouting, what happens is water can get through, and then in this case, it's clearly either causing or perpetuating dampness in the timber that's releasing the rot, which is allowing rot to germinate.
That's okay, this isn't cracked. Oh, that's probably getting the water coming across there.
So using this type of damp meter, which is using radio waves, you can determine if there's dampness behind the tiles.
Okay, that's and then so this is going to be it's going to be hollow with the pipework's going to come in underneath, and there's probably timber supporting it. I would imagine that you've got rot in there. It's possibly not worth worrying about it because it won't cause. I suppose that there is a risk that
I'll jump in and say that I saw this side before surveying the other side of the property. So although it's true that in many cases all you need to do is re-grout the tiles, where you're getting the rot, you want to make sure that you remove the timber, because it will keep respiring inside, and therefore it will self-perpetuate. It will cause part of the dampness.
That it is higher up here, but the damp meter indicates that it isn't. Yeah. So that's hopefully.
And there's a risk of rot in the ceiling, and then it would start to become more expensive.
If it isn't affecting the structure of the roof, all you need to do is remove it, get rid of it, bin it, recycle. Well, you can't recycle it, but throw it away. In the same way as you throw away plants, that's not a particular problem. And remove any timber that is rotten. Well, if you push your finger in and if your nail goes in, then it's rotten and it should be removed. You should replace it with timber that has been tannalized. It's been protected from rot. Okay. And the ends of the timber should be tannalized as well, with anti-rot fungicide. So it's the neighbour's property and their extractor fan.
The second figure should show 15 litres a second, and it's only something like 5 litres a second. It needs cleaning out and potentially changing.
The fan's going away.
This is in the client's top floor flat, and
when we look on the outside, there's no vent.
Voila, no vent out. I see that way too often, and also there's a slip tile.
The void inside here, and it's going to come out as
so although there's no examples here, you can get moisture forming in the void and could cause dampness and mold and potentially rot within the ceiling void. Better not to use it at all. Use the Velux window instead and close the door.
Record it as I'm chatting, okay, so that I don't have to repeat myself. Okay. So the key issue, you've got two things happening at the same time. Okay. You clearly got condensation down there, and that's caused by moving the door.
externally and having no heating there. So the area is subject to vapour, partially from the washing machine downstairs, and just any vapour in the kitchen upstairs. I'm looking to see if your kitchen extractor fan goes out.
I don't know where that
Doesn't
goes
look
anyway.
like it. It doesn't look like it.
I think it just kind of comes out the top.
Just recycle. Although I put my hand up to feel, and I felt air coming out, it appears to be ducted out, and I think what's happening is the air escaping, so it really needs to be pushed back down. Yeah, so I'm holding my hand up, and the air is just recycling. So you got two things happening. You've got water from her side as well. She's got cracks in her grout between the tiles. She had it replaced, and she said that the chap just put his sort of hand through the wall.
He did.
Did it come through to your side?
Yeah, I
It
can
broke
see
through.
him.
There's a big hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, but so I'm going to have a look at that. I mean, it's difficult to comment on that specifically, but she clearly has rot behind her tiles.
It's hollow.
There will be a void between the tiles and the wall where the pipework goes for the shower, and typically they'll use timber. And what you're seeing are the strands, so they're like roots from the rot, and they're coming through from her side. They don't appear to be coming from your side, but you have got rot. But on the one hand, it's difficult to be precise as to where the rot originated, but it's more likely that it originated on her side. But spores are omnipresent everywhere in the world. They just have to find the right conditions to germinate.
Of course, yeah.
So it could just as easily have come from your side. I would say the timber wouldn't become rotten if it wasn't wet, and the timber around the door frame is rotten, and it's probably because of condensation that it became wet to allow the conditions to rot. So what happens when you have painted timber is that if the rot gets in behind the paint, because it becomes wet for whatever reason, the rot itself respires just like humans and plants, and it generates vapour as part of the byproduct of respiration.
Okay.
So that it can actually generate. It can self-perpetuate, create the ideal conditions underneath the paint. Not that there's anything you'd want to do about that. It's just an explanation for why you get it like that. You've got it looks like cellar rot and wood weevil, as I described to you earlier. If you had dry rot, then you would have then the cracking would be bigger, and you wouldn't typically have the wood weevil. Wood weevil is found with cellar rot. So they're part of the same family. Wet rot is not a dry rot.
Okay.
So most people think, oh, that's great, but actually it's all part of the same family. It's called brown rots. They cause cuboidal cracking. They are more destructive and faster growing than white rots.
Okay.
But largely, if you get rid of the source of water, you get rid of the rot. I doubt it's structurally significant. I'll have a look to see if there's any structural significance to it. So it's really just a case of removing it and destroying it. And it's just like normal plant matter. There's rot in the wild, so it's not something that you have to take particular protection over. So I've got the data loggers now. They're in the calibrating. I'll go down and sort of test for damp, but clearly it's going to be damp down there. And I'll give you lots of recommendations. I'm giving her some recommendations as well. And then I'll sort of check through the property as a whole. But with the data loggers, what you're going to be looking for, and there's an argument for both of you having two sets of data loggers, not particularly expensive, but what you want to look for is to keep the internal dew point below the external temperature, and if you do that, then you will
reduce or even eliminate the risk of condensation,
Okay.
because you only get condensation when the dew point is above the temperature of the wall, and in
Okay.
that zone, the temperature of the wall is going to be similar to the outside temperature,
Yeah.
just because it's got no heating.
So how would we do that?
So with increased ventilation, and I'll have a look
Okay.
at your ventilation
Okay.
Through the property as a whole,
Okay.
but specifically this area.
Yeah.
Have you got a condenser dryer down there, or is it just a normal washing machine?
washer dryer. It's a
washer
dryer as
dryer.
well. We don't often dry.
Okay. Well, it only takes one event to.
Oh, I have dried down there.
Yeah. Well, how do you normally dry then?
I either dry up here in the
Yeah.
winter, and in the summer I dry
Like a
outside.
clothes
Like
horse.
Okay.
the clothes horse is outside now. Yeah,
external.
it's outside. But in the winter, obviously, I dry up here.
Yeah.
Never down there.
So what you want is to have a dehumidifier,
Okay.
and get a 20 litre plus dehumidifier.
Okay.
I think every property should have one.
Okay.
It will reduce your energy consumption for
Okay.
lots of different reasons,
Okay.
not least because moist air feels colder than the equivalent dry air, so you're
Okay.
going to increase the heat to try and achieve the same effect. But if you reduce the vapour in the air, then you'll reduce your energy consumption.
In winter.
And where would we if we had one of those?
Well,
would
next
you keep
to
it up here or?
So in two places, one next to drying clothes,
Okay.
and the second place is where you find that you've got higher vapour levels, and you
Okay.
determine the vapour levels by looking at the dew point. Dew point is a measure of vapour in air, just expressed as a degree centigrade. So if you're using data loggers, you can work out where
Okay.
your vapour's been generated.
Okay. Cool.
But the reason for calibrating them is so that we make sure that the
Baseline is.
baselines, they're equivalent to each other.
Okay. Cool.
Standardise it.
So there we have it. Rot, probably caused by the neighbour. Certainly there appears there's water coming through from the neighbour's shower side through cracks in the grout, but definitely being made worse by condensation in the that section by the rear door. So simple solution, ask the neighbour to replace their shower, remove all the rotten timber because it's clearly coming through the wall, and I would remove all rotten timber from your side as well, and reduce the condensation or the risk of condensation on your side by increasing the use of the kitchen extractor fan. It does seem to be blowing out. It could be worth investigating that further, but I suspect it's still blowing out. Use a dehumidifier, improve the top floor bathroom extractor fan, or use the Velux, and close the door, should I say. And monitor. Make sure that you're keeping the internal dew point below the external temperature at all times. And you can obviously refer to Met Office temperatures or measure outside.